Hi, I'm Terence Komal, your Engagement Officer of the Healthcare Business Network. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the discussion that I had with your Learning Officer, Anne Bilyew, on her experience and her journey as a professional and a woman in industry. I hope you enjoy this. Hi, this is Terence Komal, the Engagement Officer of the Healthcare Business Network, and have the pleasure of chatting to Anne Bilyew, our Learning Officer or Learning Chair of our network. Thank you for joining us, Anne.
Oh, my pleasure, Terence. Thanks for taking the time today.
Fantastic. And topically, being the strong focus on women and women empowerment internationally in this month, I'm quite excited to explore your journey and your experiences as my peer and colleague and friend of what has been the challenges and frustrations you've experienced in industry and the opportunities by being female. And I know that may sound a bit sexist, but I think the reality is it's a necessary conversation that we need to have, because quite often everyone wants to be very diplomatic and skirt around it, pun intended. But the intention is, what has it been to you and what have been those challenges and opportunities?
Yes. You know, it's interesting. I reflected a little bit on this before our interview today. And things have changed a lot since I started my career 25 years ago. Really, they've progressed a great deal. At least in what I've seen is a real shift. Whereas, when I started my career, it wasn't unusual, to have, people assume that you were the assistant. I mean, overtly. I mean, it was just, it was
Wow.
crazy coming out as a young, as a young woman in business 25 years ago in the U.S. I mean, the barriers were overt. I mean, and they were real, right? And the reluctance to hire women for various reasons, the shunting of women into very specific specialties, HR, etc. Some of that still goes on today, but then nobody even pretended, right?
Yeah.
Today, it's the overt stuff for the most part is gone, but there's still a lot of subtle messaging that takes place that women have to sort of fight through and be courageous through. And I think that for every woman that's achieved whatever it is that she's wanted to achieve in life, there is a measure of courage there that people, men, don't really understand, right? Because in addition to having to work hard, in addition to having to make sacrifices, to travel, to study, to whatever it is, they have to fight just a little harder, and in some cases a lot harder, but always to make their voices heard and to make their decisions count. And so there is this additional well of courage that they have to tap, right? That men don't have to, right? They can save that energy for other things.
Yeah.
So that is still very much the case, I think.
What do you think stimulated that courage and drive in your experience, Anne? You got to draw on something. There's an internal process or something that goes on to ignite that courage to go on, especially if there is that passive resistance in industry at some point. What drove you through this process?
Oh, I'm very competitive, I guess, and very driven, just by nature. My father was a commander in the nuclear navy, and the expectations were high, and the expectations were high for all of us. My brothers, my sisters. There was no grace given. So we were all held to the same, very high standards in terms of, how we were expected to behave and what we were expected to achieve. And there were no excuses allowed. It wasn't always fun, I'll say that. But I guess I would take it back to that and to just say that there was very high standards, very high expectations, and no excuses accepted the entire time I was growing up. And I guess I took that into my career with to good effect. I mean, I think that has stood me well. My therapists might think differently, but I think that's kept me on the straight and narrow, to be sure.
Yeah, fantastic. And going forward, we're at the cusp as an organization in YPO and outside in industry, is a lot of people, and I've had some great discussions with fellow YPOs of their experience of people with millennials and millennial thinking, which is actually more real than anything else. A lot of people say, prepare for millennials. The reality is a large volume, if not majority of industry is millennial thinking. Yeah. What is your advice to young professionals starting out at the moment, specifically young women, on what they can do to foster their careers, but also find a proper work-life balance between meeting themselves and meeting expectations?
Yes. You know, it's not a popular point of view probably, but I'm not sure that there's ever perfect work-life balance. I think over the arc of an entire career, you'll find balance because there'll be periods of time that you focus on one particular area of your life more than others. Yeah. So I think at any given, in any given snapshot or narrow view of time, you're not going to be in balance because there's going to be something that's, more important in the moment. I think balance needs to be thought about over the long arc of a career, right? And at the end of it, you look back and you say, okay, yes, for those 5 years, I was, traveling all the time and working 80 hours a week. And then for the next, 4 years, it was a more normal work experience, but, we had, started a family or whatever it was. Yes. So I think it's going to ebb and flow. And I think that people need to accept that and not continually look for this mythical balance and think that every day or every week or every month or even every year is going to have balance across the different parameters of their life. And in terms of, I am passionate about helping young women entrepreneurs and helping them sort of navigate, because almost invariably their board will be, if they have investors as board members, and invariably it's going to be all men. Most of their management team may be all men, and so helping young women entrepreneurs, stay the course and find that courage, tap that well, and know that they can be successful. And have somebody to reach out to, and their in moments where they're questioning that, and I think that's so important for women that have navigated that course successfully, and know where the pitfalls are potentially to help young women through those today. And I think we got to give back.
Fantastic. I'm quite excited to support such initiatives and thinking, because I'm lucky. I've got a management and board that's 80% female, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier. Because a lot of colleagues will say, but Terence, what do you think? I'm like, it's not what I think, it's what I do. And I think it's only in practicing you realize that women bring a very different dynamic in perspective because of societal expectations. Because you don't need to perform just in a boardroom. You need to perform at home, in a family environment, if you're a parent, child, wife, spouse. There's so many hats a woman has to wear, and men will literally wake up, dress up, and leave. And that's a very, very different dynamic, which I immensely respect and appreciate.
Yes. Well, thank goodness, Terence. Thank you for that. Thank goodness for that. Good for you.
Fantastic. But Anne, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to our future chats within the Healthcare Business Network in the bigger picture of YPO and contributing to these conversations with our peers globally.
Okay. Thanks, Terence. Thank you for the time.
Same here.
For the work you do.
Lovely chatting. Thanks, Anne.
Bye-bye.